We first of all have House File 1916. Representative Theis, would you like to move your bill?
I would, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Representative Theis moves that House File 1916 be brought before the committee, and this bill will be laid over. Representative Theis, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After talking to several folks, especially in my community and some of the other greater Minnesota cities, we realized that not only do we have a homeless need, but we also have workforce housing and just to bring other people into our communities. I was talking to Mayor Fabian, and some of his things that he's doing this year is trying to get a multi-family unit built. It's going to be a smaller unit because Roseau isn't that big. But what they're trying to do is bring people in just to see the community, to see what the jobs are available. They've got DigiKey and Polaris especially. And they're really looking to just show them what they can have if they move up there in, I would say, a pretty darn cold place. He's also talking about workforce housing. And I know in St. Cloud, I know in some of the other communities too around us, they really have an issue with where are they going to house folks. We've got so many places that are looking, but we've got a lot of manufacturing around us as well. And with that, I'm not going to say any more because I'm afraid I'll start sneezing, and I'll turn it over to either Chad or Scott, whichever one is going next.
We have Scott McMahon from the Greater Minnesota Partnership. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself for the record.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Scott McMahon. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Minnesota Partnership, and I'm honored to be back before this committee to talk about housing in Greater Minnesota. If you'll recall from my testimony a few weeks ago, when I kind of gave the overview of the challenges and opportunities we have in Greater Minnesota, two things that I highlighted. One is that we do have a pretty significant workforce housing shortage in a number of our communities. And a lot of that is driven by just the market realities that we face in Greater Minnesota, where when you look at the construction costs that we face, often the value of a newly built house is less than that construction cost. And so financing and getting that project built is really challenging. The reality that we face in a lot of our communities, though, is that we have houses in our communities that aren't lived in anymore, but aren't part of the housing stock because they've come under disrepair, and nobody's living in them, they can't live in them. But if we could get them back into the housing stock, they'd be a perfectly appropriate house for somebody. But the challenge we face is that low value of that house plus the fix-up cost that the community would face, again, exceeds what that houses would be valued at when it's done. And so we just have real challenges trying to get those houses taken care of. And so what ends up happening more often than not is that house either continues to stand and falls further into disrepair, or gets bulldozed and we just lose the property. So what this program would do would provide grants to cities to put in some of the capital that's needed to bring that house back up to a livable standard and to get it back into our housing stock. And the reality is, when you look at the various government programs that could be there, one of the lowest cost, if not the lowest cost program that we could have to get new housing available is to put that minimal cost into an existing property that's not used and get it back in the pipeline. So this program would provide $5 million into a grant program for cities in Greater Minnesota. It would cap investments per property at no more than $50,000 and no more than $200,000 per city. We think that this would have a really significant impact on the cities that would be able to access this program and would be able to get a number of those houses that, again, are just sitting there vacant right now back into our pipeline and available for families to move into. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know Chad Adams from the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership can provide greater insight into how an investment like this would actually play out once it's on the ground.
Yes, we also have Chad Adams from the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself.
Good morning, Chair Hausman and members of the committee. I'm Chad Adams, the CEO of the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. We've got offices in Slayton and Mankato, Minnesota. And we are a nonprofit community development corporation that provides a full continuum of housing services, from housing education and counseling all the way to single family and multifamily development, including new construction and acquisition of properties, and long-term asset owner for a lot of those multifamily properties as well too. I've been the CEO for the partnership for about 2 years and previously served about 20 years in city government management, most recently in Albert Lea, Minnesota, where I work with a lot of different stakeholders on workforce housing needs in Southeast Minnesota as well. So I've got some perspective and insight from Southwest, South Central, and Southeastern Minnesota as it relates to workforce housing. So really want to kind of talk a little bit mostly about the need for workforce housing and how this fix-up fund might specifically help homeowners, and to share some statistics with you if you haven't seen those yet. I should also note that I was also elected as the co-chair of the Homes for All Coalition this past year, so I'm representing over 270 endorsing organizations throughout the state as well too. As it relates to the fix-up fund, we are in regular contact with communities on a daily basis throughout our region on workforce housing needs. And workforce housing oftentimes, if not always, comes up as the most significant need that a community needs. And some of the barriers that Mr. McMahon mentioned are critical to trying to remedy, particularly with that affordability gap and the appraisal gap, which I can speak to a little bit more. But the aging housing stock of homes is also just a growing issue. And despite the extraordinary demand for new single-family homes throughout the Southwest and South Central regions that we serve, the rehabilitation of homes are critical to meeting the workforce needs in Greater Minnesota and really do remain more economical than building new construction, particularly with the pre- and post-pandemic rise in construction costs, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. Rehabbing the homes will also help communities preserve their tax base and avoid substandard nuisance properties from being established that ultimately decrease the market value of neighboring properties, but also becomes very expensive for taxpayers to pay for the demolition of such dilapidated homes. And I've got a lot of experience with that working in the municipal field and cities having to go in and go through that process and spend oftentimes $20,000 to $50,000 to take down one specific home that's become dilapidated. It'd be best if we could preserve those housing projects into the pipeline, as Mr. McMahon mentioned. And according to some statistics recently published by the Minnesota Housing Preservation Partnership, 40% of single-family homes were built before 1970 throughout the entirety of the state. Just in the southern region of the state, which represents South Central and Southeast Minnesota, that number increases to 46%. However, there has been a fair amount of new construction in Blue Earth and Olmsted counties, which are in that region. You take those two counties out, you look at counties like Martin, Faribault, Mauer, and Freeborn, 60% of the homes in the counties, the remaining counties, have been built before 1970. The same thing in the southwest region of the state, where there's 18 different counties represented. They're amongst the highest in the entirety of the state with homes that are built prior to 1970. So it just emphasizes a need for ongoing rehabilitation and repair. And I should also just note that there needs to be a new funding source and program that has a quick turnaround for meeting some of these needs. There are some other existing programs out there throughout the state, but oftentimes they take a fair amount of time to go through the process. It might be 2 years down the road until the property owner or owner of that home actually sees a benefit. So there is need to get some more funding in the pipeline, but also to diversify the tools that are out there specifically. As Scott had mentioned earlier, a big significant barrier is the appraisal of some of these homes in Greater Minnesota. We're oftentimes finding either for a new construction or even for a rehabbed home that the appraised value is $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 less than what it is the cost to construct that home and list it, or to basically repair that home and put it back on the market. So I just really wanted to emphasize that today. And certainly I'm open to a lot of questions about the other broader challenges and needs with workforce housing in Greater Minnesota. I have testified before this committee about a month ago on construction cost, appraisal challenges, construction trade shortage, just the lack of availability of workforce development, housing, affordable housing needs, and administration fees that oftentimes developers have to pay for a lot of these projects, what I don't view to be a significant challenge in the entirety of the barrier of building homes, rehabbing homes in Greater Minnesota. But specifically, I just want to kind of pause and just take any questions to see if you have any other perspectives or insights that you want me to share from Greater Minnesota.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, do we have any questions for either the testifiers or for the bill's author? Mr. Worth?
Yes, Madam Chair. Representative Ryer has a question.
Representative Ryer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this question is either for Representative Theis, and thank you for bringing this forward, or for either testifier, whoever it makes most sense. I guess I'm wondering if, first of all, if the $50,000 cap is sufficient to bring the properties up to the standard that they would need to be, or if that would also require other local investment or other funds. And also, I was struck by the comment that cities and towns are spending $20,000 to $50,000 to tear down dilapidated structures. Is there a regulatory or legal barrier to using those funds to instead invest in the property? And are there different ways to think about that? Thank you.
Either Mr. McMahon or Mr. Adams, who wants to step up?
Well, Madam Chair, I think Mr. Adams might be better equipped to address the second part of the question. But as to the first part of the question on the $50,000 cap, you know, we're trying to see what would happen with an investment opportunity like this. And, you know, our general sense is that if it's going to be more than $50,000 to do it, we may in fact be better, if it needs that much work on the house, we may in fact be better off removing that house. But also with the cap of $50,000, it allows us to spread that investment into more communities and have a bigger impact on the total number of properties rather than limiting the number of properties that can be brought back online.
Thank you. Mr. Adams, do you have a sense of the other question? What other local funding sources?
Yes, and Madam Chair and members of the committee, there aren't a lot of other local funding sources that have been set aside by communities. I don't disagree that some of that funding could be set aside into more preservation, but I do believe that most cities are doing that already when they're pairing that with the small cities program. But that's why there's such a critical element to need here, because there's so much demand, and that small cities program is not meeting the entirety of the need. So this fund will be a little bit more direct and appropriated to the direct needs, and would be a little bit more efficient, in my opinion, to avoid those cities from having to spend those $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 costs on demolition. They could spread that out amongst a number of homes, whether it's support from private investment or other public investment or other grants from the state as well too. So it would additionally help the leveraging of other capital being brought to the table, whether it's private or public.
Representative Ryer, follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I really like seeing new approaches and thinking on how to preserve the NOAA resource across the state, both metro and non-metro. I appreciate your focus here. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put my 2 cents worth in, because after the Great Recession, I think it was 2010, 2011, totally, we did about 13 homes, and we bought them anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000, and then put in mostly windows, roof, insulation, doors, just making sure that the house was tight and efficient. And most of the time we could do that really reasonably. So I think 50K is a really good place to start. But I think our cities are also recognizing that we don't have the inventory and that we can do it. One of the homes we got, I mean, we bought it for 20 grand. It had a lot of mold and different things into it, and we gutted the whole thing. But we sold it. You know, we put maybe 50 or 60 into it, but we sold it at a really nice price because it was a super nice house. And we were getting a lot of questions from realtors. In fact, yesterday I got a call from a realtor friend of mine, and he knows we have some rentals. He wants to know if we want to sell, because right now is a good time to sell. There isn't a lot of housing. So I think this is a really good time to have something like this out there. Cities are looking for homes. And I think, you know, we can do quite a bit with 50K, with 50,000. But I think that just putting it out there shows the need, and I think we'll get a good response from it. I know a lot of friends that would take advantage of it. Thank you.
Further questions, Mr. Worth?
Madam Chair, there are no other questions in the queue at this time.
Representative Theis, do you have final comments?
just thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me have the opportunity to have this bill heard and considered to go into the housing bill. I think it is a need. We know that, and just really appreciate it. Thank you.
And this will, 1916, it will be laid over.